Best Irish music on irishradio.org with Gerry Byrne.
Irish Radio, I'm Gerry Byrne. Now, since the onset of COVID and everything else, I was speaking to many of the great and the good of music. Now, I've got a gentleman who's got fascinating stories. He's from the world-famous, I suppose you could call it, the Ballroom of Romance, the Rainbow in Glenfarne, which has not alone been in folklore, visited by thousands of people, also emulated in song as well. I'm delighted to say a big hello to Gerry Finneran. Gerry, how are you?
Hello there. My name's Gerry. How are you?
Not too bad at all, Gerry. Not too bad at all. Gerry, listen. Tell me this. When did the Rainbow in Glenfarne start off?
Well, it took off in 1934. If I go by the proper dates and all that, but in 1934, of course, it was simply McGivern's Hall, because in them days there was long before the show bands and so on. And you just danced to the little country bands, you know. It didn't get the name Rainbow until when, after a number of years, going very well, once 1934 passed, of course, for a number of years after that, it took off very well. People didn't have great ways of travelling, so the population was big in the rural areas and they were able to fill the hall, but the word about it obviously had spread around. I wasn't around here at the time, of course, and the word had spread around about this new hall and great dances, with the result that when it came to 1950 or 51, the owner, the late John McGivern, decided that it was worthwhile to go the possibility of making the hall larger, to enlarge it to cater for the bigger numbers that was coming. And of course, by 1952 as well, quite more transport on the road. People were getting cars and all that, and then it went on very, very well. And about 1952, he decided that he was going to take the plunge and make it bigger, which he did. And sometime in the 52, 53, the hall took on a great appearance, great big worthy hall, and John was concerned that maybe the name McGivern's Hall wouldn't be, appropriate. So he asked a few people around the area would they suggest a name for the hall rather than McGivern's. So a lady came to him one day and she said to him, "You should call your hall the Rainbow Ballroom." And he liked the suggestion, he liked the name, and there and then it became the Rainbow Ballroom. That was the early 50s. And it's around the time of the starting of the show bands would come on the scene around then, and the crowds were coming from much further then because transport was more freely available. And when the show bands came on the scene then, shortly around that time anyway, when other areas saw how well the Rainbow was doing, and people in the know and all that, and had, I suppose, the wealth to do it, new halls started springing up all over the place. You had the Astoria in Bundoran and Mayflower and the Wonderland and all these. And John became a little concerned that maybe he'd lose a lot of business and he had to try something else. And he decided that he was a pretty good singer. So he dressed up in one night in his lovely black suit, dicky bow and a tuxedo really, and went on stage with the band. And he would sing a couple of romantic songs. He would then tell the people that, that was dancing, the young couples especially, to get to know each other a bit better and all that, and maybe have a cup of tea or a mineral at the tea bar, the mineral bar, which became very famous. And after some time, he began to realize that there was some happy engagements coming from this introduction of his, and he thought to himself, well, I must be doing something good. And he decided then that he would call, I should have said, of course, that he would spend 10 to 15 minutes singing with the band romantic songs and all that, and he had a unique way of doing it. He would recite some of the verses, and he'd go on, then he would thank them and tell them to wish them good night and all that when the dance was over. And that was to everybody, of course. And one night, maybe a year or two after these introductions or his romantic songs, he began to get people coming to him and congratulating him on his wonderful work. And that it would tell him then, the girl might hold out her hand and she'd point to her engagement ring. And she would say, now, Mr. McGivern, she says, I have to be cross with you, because, and then I can't be cross with you because you're the responsible for this, holding out her hand until he would see the ring. So then that went on for some time, and he decided, well, this is going good, and he renamed, he added on to the name of the hall, the Ballroom of Romance. And he would, he was very proud of this fact. But then he decided that he would paint that on the hall as well. That a name was already on the hall, but he would add to it the Ballroom of Romance. And that the news and all that went far and wide, of course. And he was getting, the top show bands at the time. And a gentleman was driving past one day around this time, and he saw the inscription on the front wall of the hall, the Ballroom of Romance. And he was a bit curious as to know what was this all about. There wasn't anyone around that he could ask. So he went into the local shop. And the owner of the shop, he was a man called Hugh Clancy, who was a great buddy of John McGivern's, told him the story of it. And this man was a well-known author by the name of William Trevor. And he penned a short article. He had a book of stories, and one of them was the Ballroom of Romance, and of course said where it was situated and all that. And the word from the book then, of course, and people bought it, and it spread around the world, obviously. But it wasn't until later on then, when all the big show bands were coming there, every night then that he would have a dance. Of course, you were bound to have the place full, in fact. And he eventually, until such time as he was getting on in years, of course, and he had to take it easier, and he eventually leased the hall and to the various organisations, and one of them was the Top Rank organisation from Castleblaney in County Monaghan, and they ran it very, very well under lease from John, and ran it very well. But as time went on, it came to the days of the show bands were beginning to fade away, and the big dance halls really had taken over anyway. But the show band scene was passing on, and this was well into the 1980s, of course. And the hall was eventually then taken over by the parish and run very well, including for concerts and sit-down games and all other types of things, fundraising events of all kinds. The local GA club would benefit by it and so on. And eventually, I suppose, in the end of the show band days and all that, it wasn't viable anymore, I suppose, anyway, to have it as a local hall, but it went into decline for a little while in the 1990s. And eventually, I suppose, it was getting too expensive maybe to run it, but eventually it was sold by the Top Rank company, and the local parish, as I said, bought it, and it ran good enough, but people were getting serious at this time. But the hall was beginning to fall into decline, and it needed a lot of refurbishment and so on and so forth. And eventually the local group of local people got together under the heading of the Glenfarne Development Committee, and started running functions in it, and they decided that, well, we'll have to keep this place running. John McGivern put an awful lot of work into it. He had made a great name for it, and the people of Glenfarne deserved him an awful lot. And the least we could do now was try and reinvent the hall and, do it up. So there's an awful lot of time and money spent on it. And eventually then, sometime around about 10 years ago or so, they reopened up. Well, it never really closed, but it reopened for dancing and all that again, and has taken off. And at the moment now, it's with the COVID, of course, there's nothing happening, but it has been renovated to a huge extent, and extra ground bought around it and developed, and it hosts an awful lot of different types of functions, and it's been a small type of an archive in memory of the show bands, of records, books, postcard pictures of the various bands, stamps, all that sort of thing, and it's catching on very well. We have a lot of people then, bus tours and all that, up until this lockdown, of course. Bus tours come there, and they're explained to them and all. They have a look at what we have on offer, and that is going very, very well. So we're hoping that we'll have many more years from it, you know.
Indeed, it's an absolutely fascinating story, Gerry. It's become a tourist attraction.
Well, it has, you see, because I think, and that's all due to John McGivern's initiative of having this, what he called his romantic interludes. What that meant was, you see, I should have already said that. This romantic interlude, people laughed at the idea, but it was true, it worked. When he would go on stage singing, he'd introduce himself, and he'd say, well, now, boys and girls, he says, it's time once again for a romantic interlude. And he would start off singing maybe one of Jim Reeves' sentimental songs, or the one which was very popular with himself was "Have You Ever Been Lonely?" And he would, speak some of the words in a very dramatic way. But he was very, very good at that type of thing, and he got very, very good speaking voice, I must say. And the romantic interlude was one of the highlights of the night. And he would introduce himself, at the end, and say that, well, this is your old. He would finish up by saying, your old friend Johnny Macaroni, saying good night, God bless, see you at our next dance. Now, I said Johnny Macaroni there because that was a name that he got while he was in America working, that he got from a very good friend of his who was also working as a disc jockey over there, and his name was Johnny Macaroni. So John McGivern then took that name for a stage name, really. And the local people always called him Macaroni, you see. Some of the younger people thought that was his real name, of course, until they got to hear about it. But anyway, it proved very successful, this romantic interlude. And there has been stories written about it. And in fact, there's a new book just out at the moment by the author. The author of the book is a man called Harry O'Reilly from Drogheda in County Louth. And Harry played with a band in the 1960s, a show band called the Toppers. They were all based around the Drogheda area. And Harry was one of the younger members of the band, and he thought this was a wonderful venue to go to, and he was delighted. So in his book, which came out, his first book about 6 years ago, he featured the rainbow in it, and we didn't know anything about it until we got a copy of the book, and we're delighted. So Harry now has just completed, and it has just gone on sale last week, his new book, and it played again, Paddy, number 2, or volume 2. But anyway, the story, it's a wonderful book. I just got a copy of it there, and he traces the history from listening to us talking to him, and he has it very well, very, very well put together, and it's well worth the buy. Now, there are other stories in the book, of course, as well. But however, get back to the rainbow, at the moment, it has been a lot of work done, repainted inside, and extensions built to it there through funding, grants and all that. There's a top-class kitchen in it that can cater for weddings, when hopefully we'll be getting back to that day when this lockdown is over. And, it's still retaining a huge interest, because we see every day, including today, pass by there an hour ago, and there are people taking photographs outside. They like to have these with them for souvenirs. So we're strangers, not locals now. And the locals, of course, know it so well.
It's
Well,
a fascinating. It's a fascinating place. One of the things that I notice actually is outside at the front. From the photographs I've seen, it's still
yeah.
the old style signage, like the sort of the old signage that you used to be at ballrooms back in the day.
As it stands today, the hall inside, it's not an awful lot changed now in it. Only it's much brighter and cleaner, of course, and all that. We were very lucky to retain maple floor that's there now. It was Canadian maple of top class, and it was laid down in 1952 when renovation work was done on the hall, and the show band scene was beginning to get very strong at that time. But over the years, some of the hall had to be replaced. Some of the floor, sorry. And we were able to save about 3/4 of the original floor, which was great because the quality of it was very, very good, and people always commented on it. And over the years, it was based on girders, and it gave the floor a great bounce. And they used to call it the spring floor. It wasn't really on springs now or anything like that, but the girders weren't too solid, you see, or they were light quality, and this is what the people loved. They loved the spring in the floor, but they'd always come back because John was very, very John McGovern. Again, I should say the man is deceased, of course, because Lord have mercy on him. But I'll tell you, his name isn't forgotten around here, So
I'd well believe it. Now, something else, Gerry, is that you've actually you're doing a virtual, or you're planning to do a virtual reality tour of the Rainbow.
Oh yes. That's been promoted. Now there's a chap or two young men in working there, and they're getting into all this type of stuff, getting in doing that. But that's not complete yet. But I think it's that you can use these headphones and mirrors that you think you're actually in the dance of the old style way back long ago,
Absolutely magic.
That was reenacted back there a few months ago, or earlier in this year before the pandemic, We have the course of memorabilia and all that. That's all on display. One room set aside for that alone. And it's quite a big room, and there's quite a bit of nostalgia about it too, and we have a huge collection of pictures of John McGovern and various parts of his life, and on stage and we have some recordings of his as well that he did on stage when he sang with the band and introduced himself to the couples and this romantic interlude. We were very, very lucky to come across some of the old footage stuff that was recorded back in 1970. So it brings back a lot of memories to people. So
I would well believe it, because one thing, Gerry, it's been a real shame around the country to have seen the dance halls, which attracted thousands upon thousands of people, and the vast majority of them have gone into disrepair and are being used for something else. It's fantastic that you're able to keep the memory alive, keep the tradition alive, and also to be able to show how things were, and also the exhibition. And actually, you still actually do run events, dances and concerts and things like that yourselves.
Oh, we do, yeah. The last stage shows, concert. It's a huge stage in it now at the moment, and has all the facilities. And the hall is actually catering now for weddings, and there's a kitchen in to equip anything in any of the top hotels. A fully fitted kitchen. We spent nearly $500,000 on it back there a few years ago, and through fundraising and grants and various type of things, we're getting well on the way now. I think the debt is nearly cleared. We're very little to. It was a big undertaking and a big chance to take, but we decided we'd go with it anyway, and it has proven its worth. So, but we get an awful lot of people when they come from abroad on holidays, and especially people who, in their teenage years and their younger time, that danced here and then had to leave the country, sadly, for employment and for work and so on. And when they come back on holidays, we get them, and they love coming in and seeing say, oh, we danced to that band and such a band, and then they have a cup of tea with us and a scone or something like that before they continue their journey, and they also people really love it. But I don't think we would have gone to that trouble, only that we maintain that Mr. John McGivern and his good wife Maureen, who's still with us, and they did so much for the area and gave so much entertainment and enjoyment through the dance hall that we thought it was only right that John McGivern's name should be retained and kept in people's memories and all that. And it's because I doubt very much if anybody in 1934 would have the courage to do what he did do. Those small little halls, all right, and there was country house dances. But when John opened his little hall first, small, there was no electricity around here. There was no running water. And what he gained, and the amazing thing about it is now that huge big dance halls came on stream since that, and most of them, sadly, they're all gone. They're supermarkets or garages or warehouses of some description, and some of them only a heap of rubble. But, it's for that, I think, that kept us going all the time. And we're glad now that we did do it because we feel that people are enjoying it,
Indeed, so it appears to be, getting huge reaction from, and it's great to see, absolutely brilliant to see that you actually still run events there. And the thing about it is, you can actually cater in the ballroom for, I believe, sitting down something like 450 people.
Oh yeah, we get some of the tour concerts like from Cultus Culture, and they're very well organised shows. They do a tour of the country every year, top class entertainers and all that. And we have no problem in seating 450 to 500 people there for those shows,
Absolutely fantastic.
I suppose it's in a rural area. I suppose it's not too bad.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And there is the website. You've got a website which is called the rainbowballroom.ie, and that's there also. You're on Facebook as well. And listen, no doubt you'll be up and flying in action once again with all sorts of events and everything, just as soon as it's safe to do so after COVID.
Oh yeah, you see, we had to cancel quite a few events over the past 8 or 9 months, But there is a lot of events organised right up until July, are booked and advertised, but that's subject to the country getting clearance again, And we're hoping that will be the case and that people will be able to come out and enjoy themselves again,
Indeed so. Listen, Gerry, it's been absolutely fascinating chatting to you. You're a wealth of information, I'll have to say, and it's truly fascinating. I definitely will be visiting you in as soon as it's safe to do so, over in the Rainbow in Glenfarne. Gerry, lovely to chat to you.
Well, thank you very much, Gerry. And as I said, I'm not very good at speaking on the radio like this, but face to face, I'm much better.
Absolutely
so,
fine.
Thank you for taking the time and the effort to contact us. And I suppose I have to say a special word of thanks to a wonderful lady called Sharon Murphy. So she does so much for us. But there are so many people that has thrown their weight behind of what we're doing. We're delighted with it, It's not easy, but we're keeping going anyway.
Exactly. Listen, have as good a Christmas as you can, and listen, here's looking to brighter days in 2021, Gerry.
Well, please go on, and thank you very much, Gerry, for going to the trouble of contacting me, and I appreciate that now.